The number of confirmed coronavirus cases worldwide has passed 40 million, with well over 1 million deaths. The US, Brazil and India are reporting the highest numbers. Europe is also facing a surge in COVID-19 infections with record daily highs in many countries. Let me give you a quick overview of how the situation has developed. On March 1st of this year, health departments across Europe registered 401 new cases. Keep in mind, testing was not as widespread as now, so actual numbers could have been much higher. But you can see a clear trend of rising daily infections, peaking at the end of April, beginning of May. By then, most of Europe was in lockdown, and you can see the effect of that here with new infections dropping to a low point in mid-July. But since then, the numbers have been creeping up again, with new cases rising steadily since August. On Friday, more than 137,000 daily cases were registered across Europe. Well, one of the European countries struggling to cope with the pandemic is Belgium. Hospitals' admissions of coronavirus patients there have doubled in the past week, and the government is warning the situation is worse than at the beginning of the pandemic in March.
There were long queues in Brussels on Monday. People lined up, socially distanced, to get tested for coronavirus. Belgium has recorded more than 700 infections per 100,000 people over the past 14 days, the second highest rate in Europe. Many have had their first brush with the virus, and now they want to be sure that they're not infected. Someone close to me tested positive, so I want to get tested to be sure. I don't have any symptoms, but better to be safe than sorry. With such a high rate of infection, Belgium authorities implemented a raft of new measures on Monday. People have been ordered to work from home wherever possible, and social contacts outside of the home should be limited to one. Alcohol sales are banned after 8 p.m, and a curfew is being enforced from midnight until 5 a.m. Cafes, bars and restaurants will be closed for a month. Many hospitality workers are frustrated with the return to some of the harsh measures experienced earlier in the year. It's like the first time. It's catastrophic. We'll just have to try and survive. We've had some state aid, and that's something. It's better than nothing, but we'll see. But Belgian officials say the measures are absolutely necessary. The country's health minister says the health system could soon be overwhelmed by infections and warned of a coming tsunami of cases. Many doctors share his concerns. The sky is more or less blue, but we can see a huge wave is about to arrive. It's inevitable. Authorities hope the drastic set of measures will have a quick impact. They say they'll review the results in 2 weeks' time.
France has reported a massive increase in the number of people hospitalized with COVID-19. Over 2,000 are currently in intensive care. That's the highest number since May, and it's putting health services under considerable strain. Authorities have imposed a partial curfew in Paris and 8 other cities as one of multiple measures aimed at stemming the virus. The curfew affects some 20 million people and is set to last at least 4 weeks. Authorities have also made face masks compulsory outside the home. Well, for more, let's cross over to DW's Paris correspondent, Lisa Lewis. Lisa, is there any indication that these new measures to curb infections are actually working?
Well, I think it's a bit early for that. The curfew in these cities came into force on Saturday. And, when you look back at, the past 24 hours, there have indeed only been 13,000 new infections compared to about 32,000 just a few days back. But that's basically down to labs being closed on Sunday. And if you look at intensive care units, as you just said, that's a new high since May. And also COVID-19 related deaths have climbed to 146 compared to just 80 or 90 a few days ago within 24 hours here. So it's getting more dire indeed.
How are people in France coping with these new restrictions, Lisa?
Well, it is a bit difficult, and there is quite a backlash, especially by those that will be economically impacted by the new measures. For example, restaurant and bar owners, those who manage theatres and cinemas, they're saying the bulk of our business is taking place at night and we will really lose out. Government is putting another €1 billion on the table to help those people. But, when it comes to restaurants, hotels and bars, for example, I've been told that 30% of all those establishments will actually enter bankruptcy proceedings already. So it is very difficult for them. They're obviously saying, the government should create exceptions for us. Let us, for example, people have dinner at 8 o'clock so that they can go back at 10, and that won't make any difference. Actually, it will only, to the infection rate, it will only make a difference to our business, because it will mean that we will be able to survive this crisis.
Now, enacting new anti-corona measures is one thing, enforcing them quite another. How tough are authorities being when it comes to enforcement?
Well, the police has already done about 20,000 controls over the past few days since Saturday, when the curfew came into force. 3,000 fines have been handed down, but I think that is still not that high a figure. The police has been told to be a bit lenient with people in the first few days. And, it will take some time to get used to these measures. When I took the metro last night at 8:30, it was packed, and it normally isn't packed at that time. I think many people were struggling to get home. I got home at 20:53, but lots of those with me on the metro would certainly didn't get home by 9 o'clock. And I understand the police is in the first few days has been rather lenient if you get home at 10 past, 15 past, at 9, so that people can still get used to that new measures and actually adapt their schedule to it, actually, and be home by 9.
Adapting to that, pretty tough. DW's Lisa Lewis in Paris. Thanks. Well, here's a look at some other developments in the coronavirus pandemic. The World Health Organization has linked rising case numbers in the Northern Hemisphere to a failure to quarantine people exposed to the virus. It's called for more consistency in enforcing self-isolation measures. India has posted its lowest number of daily cases in nearly 3 months. Infections have been decreasing since a peak in September, and hundreds of fishermen who flew into New Zealand to crew local vessels are isolating in the city of Christchurch after 11 tested positive for the virus. New Zealand had gone 3 weeks with no community transmission of the illness. Another victim of the global pandemic has been press freedom. Journalists have been harassed and arrested for reporting on the spread of the virus. Some governments have introduced laws punishing those who share information that doesn't support the official line. Muzzling the press can also endanger public health.
Behind the mask of coronavirus, censorship spreads. Journalists around the world have come under attack for reporting on the pandemic. It started in China, where citizen journalists dared to deviate from the official narrative. Cheng Shixue shared images of overstretched hospitals in Wuhan.
The virus is right in front of me. China's criminal prosecutors are behind me. I'm not afraid of death. Do you think I'm afraid of you, Communist Party of China?
Cheng Shixue disappeared in February and was only seen again by friends in September. Fang Bin, another reporter, remains missing. He had released secret videos of coronavirus victims. Reporters Without Borders has documented coronavirus coverage restrictions in nearly half of all UN member states. Those who are jailed are at risk of infection. Al Jazeera journalist Mohamed Monir died in July from coronavirus after being arrested in Egypt, as did reporter Saleh Al-Sheikh, jailed for documenting corruption in Saudi Arabia. The deliberate targeting of the press has worried the United Nations Human Rights Commissioner.
Across the world, COVID-19 is also being instrumentalized to limit people's rights to speak, to express opinion, and to participate in making decisions that affect their lives. In the Russian Federation, China, Kosovo, Nicaragua, and many other countries, I note reports of threats and intimidation against journalists, bloggers, and civic activists, particularly at the local level, with the apparent aim of discouraging criticism of the authorities' responses to COVID-19.
At a time when information can save lives, press repression can fuel the pandemic.
Let's bring in Cédric Alviani here. He's the East Asia Bureau Head of Reporters Without Borders and joins us from Taipei. Thanks for being with us. First of all, journalists are being attacked by both governments and demonstrators for reporting on the coronavirus. Has your organization ever documented anything like on this scale before?
Absolutely. And in this period of pandemic, it has never been more vital for the public to receive accurate information, no matter where they are in the world. It's somehow the proof that censorship is not only the problem of the countries in where it applies, but it's a global problem that democracies have to tackle globally, because it is a fact that if journalists had been able to provide the alert in China, the virus probably would have been addressed much earlier and would have left the Chinese borders.
What impact are these attacks on press freedom having on public awareness about the pandemic?
In the case of China, the government has been very active at ousting foreign journalists. There have been not less than 18 journalists, foreign correspondents expelled or forced to leave China since the beginning of the year. There has also been a wave of arrests in China after a quick burst of free expression, because the Chinese public was so upset when they realized the authorities had been lying and had been covering up the phenomenon that for a moment there was a lot of free speech, like the free expression was released online, but there have been a lot of arrests, and we count at least 7 or 8 journalists still detained in China to date.
So, Mr. Alviani, what do you think can be done about this? How can press freedom be defended in countries where it's being attacked so severely in this pandemic?
Well, the example of China that had an exemplary management of the COVID-19 crisis without going against any principle of the rule of law shows that an authoritarian treatment of the pandemic does not bring any positive effect. Actually, it is even very dangerous. You can not pretend that the virus is not there, it's going to come back and remind you there. So it's extremely important that the public could access accurate information on the virus, on its effects, on the way to protect themselves. Also, because without this, the public might believe some illegitimate contents and might take the wrong decisions, which could bring the pandemics to an even worse level.
Cédric Alviani of Reporters Without Borders, thank you very much. Berlin is famous for its nightlife, especially the club scene here. It all came to a grinding halt, though, earlier this year due to the coronavirus pandemic. Nightclubs remain closed, and now the city government has tried to impose an 11 p.m. closing time on all bars and restaurants. Some bar owners have gone to court and won, so they're allowed to remain open for now. We've been out and about to see what's happening to the party metropolis, Berlin.
Berlin, once Europe's nightlife capital, has quietened down since the beginning of the pandemic. Doors are closed, dance floors empty. Clubbers are not the only ones affected. Owners face a whole winter without business. Many believe the city's cultural landscape will be the poorer.
For us,
there are two priorities during this pandemic. First, save people. Second, save club culture. If you've experienced what it's like to dance together to amazing music, to feel free and safe within a friendly crowd, you know people often function better in a club atmosphere than in mainstream society. You realize that club culture is an expression of how society could be different, better. Berlin is known as a haven for artists and musicians in particular. They've been especially hard hit, professionally and in their everyday lives.
As an artist and event manager, a lot changed. This situation never seen before.
The measures have put a damper on socialising in the capital, and they're a big challenge for restaurant and bar owners. They fear limits on opening times and alcohol sales will threaten their livelihoods once again. There are some things that we as a hospitality branch find absolutely necessary. Social distancing, wearing a mask, those are really good measures, and so is making sure bars are not crowded. What we don't understand is why, for months, the gastronomy and nightlife sector has been saddled with all the blame. We've been treated as culprits, and that's not the case. Customers, too, have had to adapt. Some, though willing to make sacrifices, find the measures perplexing.
I had to think about what I was about to do more, but I don't think it changed the number of people I saw, and in this sense, I don't know if these measures were so efficient.
Now, like that you're inside your house with your close friends, it changed a lot. So you get to know the people better, and you get to spend much more time with these people.
For safety's sake, most people have accepted the restrictions on their social lives with grace. But many do wonder whether Berlin will ever be the same again.